I never imagined that the worst night of my life would begin with a gold invitation embossed with my ex-husband's name. 3 months after Ryan walked out of our 12-year marriage, leaving me with nothing but an empty house and a stack of unpaid bills, a courier delivered an invitation to his lavish engagement party. He wasn't just marrying the woman he had secretly been seeing, Vanessa, the glamorous socialite everyone admired. He wanted the whole city to watch. At first, I laughed. Then I cried. Then I decided I would go. Not because I still loved him, but because I refused to let him remember me as the broken woman he abandoned. I borrowed a simple emerald green dress from my sister, fixed my hair, forced myself to smile in the mirror, and walked into the most luxurious hotel ballroom I'd ever seen. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above hundreds of guests while a live orchestra played softly. Ryan stood near the stage in a designer tuxedo, laughing as if our marriage had never existed. Vanessa glowed in an expensive gown, proudly showing off the diamond bracelet he once promised he could never afford. The room buzzed with whispers as people noticed me entering. Some looked away in embarrassment. Others stared, waiting for a dramatic scene. Ryan smirked when he saw me, as if my presence confirmed he was still the center of my world. "I didn't think you'd actually come," he said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "I figured curiosity would get the better of you." Vanessa slipped her arm through his, flashing a victorious smile. "I hope seeing us together helps you move on," she added sweetly, though the cruelty behind her words was impossible to hide. Every eye in the ballroom turned toward me, expecting tears or anger. Instead, I simply smiled and replied, "Congratulations." That single word confused them more than any argument ever could. As the evening continued, I wandered toward the terrace, desperate for fresh air. That's when I noticed a distinguished older gentleman standing alone, quietly watching the celebration from a distance. He wasn't laughing like everyone else. He wasn't celebrating either. His tailored charcoal suit and calm confidence suggested unimaginable wealth, yet there was sadness in his eyes. When he noticed me, he offered a gentle smile. "You handled yourself better than most people would have," he said. I thanked him politely, assuming he was another guest. Before I could leave, he introduced himself. "My name is Alexander Sterling." The name nearly made me lose my balance. Alexander Sterling was one of the richest businessmen in the country, a billionaire investor whose companies employed tens of thousands of people. But what shocked me even more was what he said next. "Vanessa is my wife." I stared at him, convinced I had misheard. He nodded slowly. "Legally, she still is. She disappeared months ago after emptying several of our shared accounts. She filed for divorce only last week." Ryan apparently never bothered asking whether her divorce was finalized. My heart raced. Suddenly everything made sense. Ryan thought he had stolen another man's wife, but he had actually become part of someone else's unfinished story. Alexander chuckled quietly. Funny how people who betray others rarely investigate the truth. Before I could respond, the orchestra stopped. Ryan climbed onto the stage, raised a champagne glass, and announced that he had one final surprise before revealing Vanessa's engagement ring. Guests applauded as cameras pointed toward the couple. Vanessa held out her hand dramatically. Ryan opened a velvet ring box and slowly slid a dazzling diamond ring onto her finger. Cheers erupted throughout the ballroom. Then something unexpected happened. Alexander calmly stepped forward from the terrace. His presence immediately silenced the room. Vanessa turned pale. Ryan's confident smile disappeared. Several business executives whispered nervously as they recognized him. Alexander walked onto the stage without raising his voice. "Congratulations," he said, although it's unusual to celebrate an engagement before finalizing a marriage. The room froze. Vanessa's hands began shaking. Ryan looked completely confused. Alexander removed a folder from his briefcase and handed it to Ryan. Inside are copies of the financial fraud investigations, pending divorce filings, and frozen asset notices your fiancé forgot to mention. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Reporters who had been invited to cover the glamorous engagement suddenly rushed toward the stage. Ryan flipped through the documents, his face draining of color with every page. Vanessa tried grabbing the folder, but Alexander calmly stepped aside. "You lied to me," Ryan shouted. "You told me everything was settled." Vanessa couldn't answer. Her silence spoke louder than any confession. Most people expected Alexander to humiliate them further. Instead, he turned away. As he walked past me, he quietly slipped a small velvet box into my hand and whispered, "Open it after they leave." Confused, I held the box tightly while chaos erupted behind us. Ryan and Vanessa argued in front of hundreds of stunned guests. Investors quietly exited the ballroom. Social media influencers live-streamed the scandal. Within minutes, the glamorous engagement party had become the city's biggest public disaster. I stepped outside into the peaceful night and slowly opened the velvet box. Inside wasn't an engagement ring. It was a simple silver ring engraved with a tiny phoenix rising from ashes. Beneath it rested a folded note in Alexander's handwriting. "This isn't a proposal. It's a reminder. Some people destroy lives. Others rebuild them. You walked into that room with dignity when everyone expected revenge. People like you deserve new beginnings, not endless endings. If you ever want to rebuild your career, my company could use someone with your strength." Tears filled my eyes, not because someone had rescued me, but because for the first time since my divorce, someone had seen my value instead of my pain. 6 months later, my life looked completely different. I accepted Alexander's offer, not because he was wealthy, but because he believed in me before I believed in myself. Starting as a consultant, I eventually helped lead one of his company's community programs supporting women rebuilding their lives after divorce and financial abuse. The work gave my suffering purpose. Ryan, meanwhile, lost nearly everything. The scandal ruined his reputation, and the business partners who once admired him quietly walked away. Vanessa disappeared from society pages almost overnight as multiple investigations unfolded. One rainy afternoon, Ryan unexpectedly appeared outside my office. He looked exhausted, older, and filled with regret. "I made the biggest mistake of my life," he admitted. "Can we start over?" I looked down at the silver phoenix ring still resting on my finger. It had never symbolized romance. It symbolized survival. I smiled gently and answered, "The woman you left behind no longer exists." Then I walked back into the building without looking back. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't becoming richer than those who hurt you. It isn't watching them fail. It's becoming so healed, so confident, and so fulfilled that the people who once broke your heart can no longer recognize the person you've become. Ryan thought he was trading up when he left me for his mistress. What he never understood was that betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of the life I was always meant to live. As I stepped into the bright afternoon, the silver phoenix ring caught the sunlight, reminding me that the strongest people are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who rise after being broken. Ryan had walked away believing he had taken the best years of my life, but he had unknowingly given me the chance to discover my true worth. Alexander's unexpected act of kindness wasn't about wealth or revenge. It was proof that integrity still exists in a world filled with betrayal. Looking back, I realized that losing the wrong person had opened the door to the right future. If my story teaches anything, it's this. Never let someone else's betrayal convince you that your value has disappeared. The people who underestimate your strength may one day become the audience watching your greatest comeback. And sometimes, life's most beautiful chapters begin with the ending you never wanted.